Welcome back to the Arbitress YouTube channel. In today's class, we'll be learning how to make this beautiful multi-layered sleeve. Okay, it's a very simple DIY and it's beginner friendly. If this is what you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so to make this sleeve, I already have my basic sleeve drafted like this. There's a tutorial on how to draft your basic sleeve already on the channel. So the only modification is that the full length that I want to use, that's from my shoulder to the hem of the sleeve, is 24 inches, okay? And here I have 20 inches because I want to add the last part as a flare. So I have 20 inches here, then I'm going to be joining a 4 inches flare to this so that it can complete my 24 inches. So now it depends on how many layers you want for your sleeve. For me, I want around 6 layers of sleeve. And remember I said my full layer is going to be 24, my full sleeve length is going to be 24 inches. So 24 divided by the 6 layers that I want is going to give me 4 inches. So it means for each of my layers now, I'll have a 4 inches interval in between all of them, which means I'm dividing my whole sleeve length into 6 layers. And the last one already I said I'll be adding a flare, so that's one of the flare, which means the layers that I'm left with now is 5 layers. So what I'm going to do now is open up this sleeve now, and then from the apex, which is the upper point, now I'll start dividing it with the 4 inches. So this is 4 inches, the next is 8 inches, the next is 12 inches, the next is 16 inches, and the last one is 20 inches. So if you can't, I'm going to make this into a straight line, and you don't have to use 4 inches interval like I'm doing. Depends, you don't have to use 6 layers of sleeve like I'm doing. It depends on what you want to use. So you can use a sleeve of 10 layers, you can use 8 layers depending on the style you are aiming to get and the amount of fabric you have to work with. Okay, so for the purpose of this tutorial, in order not to waste too much fabric, I'm just dividing this into 6 layers. I hope you understand that it's still the same method. You just need to, so for example, if I want to divide this by 8 layers, I just need to measure my full length, which is 24, divided by 8. So whatever I get is what I'm going to be measuring for each of my layers. So now we have the first one to be this, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the one we're going to be attaching to this, which is 6 inches. So now the next thing is for us to start cutting our flare. So to cut your flare now, you remember this sleeve is already shaped, so the radius of the flare is not going to be the same. So for each of the flare now, I'll measure this. So I have around 13.5 inches this for this, and then I'll be using a full flare for this. And we know the measurement for calculating the full flare is the circumference. That's where we want to add the flare to, divided by 6.28. So whatever you have there is going to be your radius. So the first one I'm going to be cutting out is the one on the end line, which is this. So the circumference is going to be 12 inches. So that 12 inches are divided by 6.28, and whatever I have there is going to be the radius for my flare. So to cut my flare now, I'm going to be folding my fabric into 4 like we normally do for cutting a flare. So 12 divided by 6.28, that's going to give me 1.9. So the radius for this sleeve is going to be 1.9 inches. Okay, that's the circumference divided by 6.28. That is how you get your radius. Okay, so 1.9 is around here, and then after measuring your radius round, the next thing you're going to measure is the length of the flare. So remember, we just have 4 inches to complete this, so I'm just going to be adding half inch extra to it. So I'm going to be measuring 4.5, or you add 1 inch to it to make it 5 inches for the purpose of the allowance. So I'm just adding half inch extra to this, and then I'm making it 4.5 inches, and then I'm going to connect it. So now I'll cut this out. Okay, so the same thing that I'm doing now is the method you're going to be using to get each and every of the flare. The only one with the difference is just the one on top, and I'll show us how we're going to be getting that also. So now I've got this now, I'm just going to slash it open on one side, and then I'll place it here. So we can see what we have. If we place it here, it's going to complete our 24 inches. So likewise, I move to the next layer now. I measure what I have here. This is 13 and a half. I'll divide that by 6.28, and then I'll fold my fabric. So the difference is just that, remember, I have put my sleeve here, so the circumference is going to be 13.5, which is what I have here, and I'm going to be dividing that by 6.28 to get my radius. So after getting the radius, which is what I use to get the measurement for this upper part, for the lower part, in order for this coming sleeve to join the to cover the joining that I'm going to be having here, instead of measuring 4 inches, I'm going to be measuring, adding 1.5 inch to it, and then I'm going to be using 5.5 as the length for each of them, so that it will be covering the one preceding it. So now to do this, now I'm going to be folding my fabric into four again. Okay, so I'll measure the radius, that's 13.5 inches divided by 6.28. Now the length, instead of 4 inches, I'll add 1.5 to it. I'll be measuring a length of 5.5 inches round. And then I'm going to cut this. Okay, so now we are cutting for the second to the last one, which is the fifth flare. So I'll cut this also, which is the radius, then I'll open it on one side. Okay, so after opening it on one side, remember the last flare that we have is going to be here. So the next one is going to be sitting on this line, and by the time we fix it, you can see that it's going to cover up what we have, the joining that we have on the next one, by the 1.5 inches allowance that we added. So that's how we're going to be cutting it. So for the next one, I'll measure what I have here, and this is around 14.5 inches. I'll divide by 6.28 for the circumference, and then the length of the flare is going to be 5.5. That's 4 inches plus 1.5 inches for covering the next one. So I'm going to be cutting for the rest now, and then we'll cut for the upper one together. So now I've cut out the flare for each of them. This is for the one on the headline, and then I'm going to be sewing it to it like this, and then the next one is just going to be on the same line that I've drawn. So I'll sew it down, and it will cover the last one. Then the next one also, I'm going to place it like this now, and then sew it down. That is how I'm going to be placing them. And you don't have to cut a full circle flare like I did. You can make yours a half circle, like a 180-degree flare. So now I'll take all this to the same machine now, and then I'm going to sew it down before we cut the sixth one, which is the upper part, which is quite different. You can see the shape of the handhole is not straight like the previous one we've cut here. So we're going to be making this to cut out the flare. Okay, so now you can see that this has been stitched down, and then we have 5 of our 6 layers. So this is the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and then I'm just sewing it on that line that I marked there. So now to cut the first one, which is shaped in form of our armhole, it's going to be quite different from this. Remember, they are not of equal length. This is higher than this. So now to do this, now I'll bring in the fabric again, and then I'm going to be putting it on fold in a triangular form like this. So you can see the way I'm folding it. I'm folding it in a triangular form, and then I'm going to mark a straight line somewhere here. Okay, so I'm putting it on fold in triangle, and then I'm going to mark a straight line here as a guide. Okay, so after marking my straight line, I'm going to bring in my sleeve pattern, which is this, and then I'll put it on fold into two. Remember, this is on fold. Then I'm going to be placing my armhole on it like this, just to imitate that armhole curve, that shape that I have there. So you can see how I'm placing it on the apex here. The fold point is on the fold point, so I'll place it like this now, and then I'm going to draw out this armhole curve that I have here. Okay, you can see the way I've drawn out my armhole curve, and this is what my armhole curve is looking like. Okay, so the essence of this first straight line is for us to create the difference in the length. So now remember, we are cutting a length of 4 inches, and then I'm adding 1.5 inch to it so that it can cover up the next one. So now from this apex, which is a straight line, I'm going to be measuring the 5.5 inches all the way down like this. 5.5 inches, 5.5 inches. Okay, so to have something uniform, so I've measured 5.5 inches like this. So from this apex now, which is the origin, I'll see what I have. This is 15 inches. So from here now, I'll start taking my, okay, 15.5. So from here, I'll start taking my 15.5, so that I'll have something in a rounded form as against the straight that I was having earlier. So you can see I'm measuring the 15.5 inches round now, and then I'm going to connect it like this. So after connecting it, I'm going to take my scissors, and then I'll cut this out, and then I'm going to cut out the shape of my armhole also. So you can see that it's quite different from what we have for the other one. So this is the upper part. I'm just going to notch it so that it will be visible for me. So now I'm going to bring in my sleeve now, and then I'm going to place this on it. So you can actually cut this on the paper first to see what you have. So you can see that it is still covering the one on the lower part. So you can cut it on the paper first to see what you have, if you need to increase it or not. So now I'll take this to the sewing machine now, and then sew it. Then after sewing it, I'll put my sleeve together now on this side, and then I'm going to shape the side. Then we'll see what we have. Okay, so I've gone ahead to stitch this now, and you can see what I have. So this is the design I'm aiming for, so I'm okay with this. But if you want more volume, like the one we have here, you know how voluminous they are. If you want it for the first one also, you just need to cut this out on a pattern, and then you do a slash and spread method to introduce more volume to it before you cut on your fabric. So now the next thing is just to take it together now and sew it on the side. So this has been shaped now, as you can see. The next thing is for us to just pull this out so that we'll see what our sleeve is looking like. Okay, so we can see the flares that we have now, and the first one is just going to cover up the same line of the second one. So to finish the edges off, you can either cut two of each and use them to turn each other, or you just use a serger or a bias to finish the line. And you can see what I have on the upper part now is not as big as the ones on the lower part, because that is the style that I'm going for. So if you want yours to be as big as this, you can do a slash and spread method like I said earlier. So I'll take this to the mannequin now so that we'll see what it looks like. So this is what our multi-layered sleeve is looking like. You can see the layers of this sleeve, and it's really beautiful. And this is the first layer. So I just want the first layer to be like a cap sleeve on top of the flares like that. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.